Hello and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Kristina. And together we bring you experts and ideas to help grow healthy, happy, successful families that are both inside.
And outside the box. If you like the show, be sure to follow Kristina on Facebook.
And please leave us a like review on your favorite podcast platform.
Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Susan Jansen. Susan is a multifaceted professional who combines her passions as a resilient coach, podcast host, and licensed realtor specializing in accessible homes. A survivor of the foster care system and being a single mom for 6 years, Susan's journey has fueled her commitment to empowering others. As the lead singer of the Trocadero Orchestra and an accomplished recording artist, she brings a unique artistic flair to her coaching. Susan is also a certified Jay Shetty confidence and resilience coach, helping individuals, especially parents of children with adaptive needs, build emotional resilience and find lasting happiness. Through her podcast, Living and Loving Each Day, Bridging Barriers, she shares inspiring parent stories of resilience and features experts who provide support and practical strategies for overcoming life's challenges. With a deep understanding of caregiving dynamics, Susan fosters a supportive community where individuals can thrive. Welcome, Susan. It is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. Thank you for having me on today. I appreciate it.
It is so awesome because whenever I started talking with you and we started talking about what the show might kind of be about, because we always do a pre-show, pre-chat to figure out our audience, what will serve our audience best, right? And you start talking about being that adaptive home person, that you talk about those kinds of things, and then also helping those parents with adaptive needs for those kids who are in a kind of a fragile situation. I'm like, this is one of the best people to have on, especially because one of our families right now is going through some of these kinds of things, right? So it is amazing that you have kind of niched down into this area and that you're able to help us out with this. So first of all, help explain a little bit about what you mean by those adaptive needs. What kind of parents, what kind of children are you kind of working with?
Okay, well, the first thing that I have to always go is to my heart, and that's because my daughter had a baby 12 years ago, and she had near SIDS. She was diagnosed. My daughter went to do the dishes, came back at 9:30 at night, and the baby, Kalea is her name, was like blue in the crib. She was like, it was it was like the most horrific. Something that I hope no parent ever goes through. It's interesting though. So what happened, I'll just give you the outcome that is positive in that she called the next door neighbor, was a male nurse. He came across and was doing CPR on her, and then they called the ambulance. And by the time I drove, I'm about 12 13 minutes away. By the time I got to the house, the baby was already in the back of the ambulance and revived. Like, wow. Oh my gosh. So just that alone. And then what happened is she went to the Stollery in Edmonton, Alberta, where we live. And she was in ICU for 5 weeks.
Oh.
And and we were standing over her bed with all the tubes, everything, for 5 full weeks. But it was like the third day when they finally said, like, she's going to live. Like, we didn't know. And then we found out, so what her incident was, that they call it, it was near SIDS. So she didn't have NIDS, but she had like oxygen deprivation to the brain. So she had now I'm picking at what you got there, Herb. I got I just lost it now in my brain. Anyway, there's 2 areas in the brain where she has cerebral palsy. And she also has cortical vision impairment. So her eyes look fine. When you look at her eyes look totally fine, but she doesn't see us, and she sees colors and lights. So if you turn out the light, she goes, ooh, like she'll know. If I put really close to her, she'll say, oh, that's brown, or that's blue, or that's red. Isn't that interesting? So it's called cortical vision impairment, and the parietal lobe, and that's the area of the brain. So that was because of the lack of oxygen. So anyway, my heart, after that long intro, my heart is just with my daughter, who has a child with adaptive needs. And then also I was in a foster care home, like way back, and there's 2 Down syndrome girls that lived with me. And I don't know, I just, I just really appreciated them. And they like me more than anybody, because I really like them back. And also I was a special ed teacher with severe needs kids, the grade 7 to 12 severe handicapped. We don't call that anymore. We call it severe needs. And my label was a special needs teacher. And now I know that the parents do not like that label either.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I use adaptive needs, because they are totally okay with what they're doing. It's just that they have to just adapt a few things so they can just do it, right? So that's just a mindset.
And I love that story because it really shows us where you're coming from, why this is such a passion for you. Absolutely. So when we start talking about, let's jump into homes, because this is something we haven't really talked about, is like whenever a family is looking for a home or they have a home, and they suddenly have an adaptive needs child, what are some of the things that they kind of look for or might need to adjust?
So you want me to put my real estate lady hat on?
For a little bit. And then we'll go back into education.
Of course. Because I've got so many, I've been around that long that I have all these different areas that I'm experienced in. As an accessible barrier-free real estate agent for the last actually 23 years now, I really understand when people have, especially a child in a wheelchair, or any mobility challenges that require us to make sure that there's entry grade level, that the counters are a little lower, that the bathroom has the 360 turnabout, so that those things are things that some parents, maybe their child might have been in a car accident and they just all of a sudden need this space that they didn't even, people, and you guys, I'm sure you understand the same as me, is when you don't have anyone in your world that has a mobility issue or has adaptive needs, and I'm talking about ADHD or anything, you don't understand or even consider those things. So when I go into a home and I have a client, I get calls from the hospital here. If a fella was in a car accident and he was a spinal cord injury survivor, so he is in a wheelchair, so they have to move out of their house and move into something that's accessible. So I know what to look for. I know the door frames, the width they should be. I know all the little things that they're going to be, that they wouldn't even have thought about, right? Why would they have up until then? So that's what I do, is I just kind of match people with the houses to make sure that there's a nice fit there. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So the doorways are something that you would want to look at because of the wheelchair, etc.
Yeah.
Counters is something you would want to look at because of being self-sufficient as much as possible, right?
100%. And safety first, and independent second. And I'm just doing podcasts on a series on my podcast where I'm talking to somebody who is an architect, and he's talking specifically about the entrances, and he calls it vertical consideration, like like how many steps are there, and how do we, we don't necessarily want ramps. You want to do other options if you can. And there's lifts, there's elevators, like those different tons of options out there. So we want to make sure we look at those things. And then when they come into the home, then I can actually say, well, this is what we could do for that. I mean, we can, we have accommodations, we have retrofitted homes all over the place. So I know the people to talk to, I know what you need, and just reassures them a little bit, because sometimes they think this is impossible to handle, and it's not. We can find solutions here, no problem.
Awesome. So it's wonderful knowing that there's people out there like you, other real estate agents, probably some have the same kind of qualifications or learning, right? Not all of them, but hopefully some of them.
Well, a few do, but I'm kind of known now. I'm very fortunate. I get the calls from other realtors to say, okay, Sue, this is what it is. What do I do? And so I just give advice. So I'm happy to do that.
Excellent.
So we're Gen Xers. We don't have sensitivity to words. So now that the generations are progressing, there's so many people who are so sensitive to words that the words are becoming so bland and so non-descriptive of what the people are actually going through. So adaptive needs is now like this blanket term for so many things.
It is.
How do you work with that? So someone calls up, say I have adaptive needs. Okay, yeah, but now you got to get specific.
Yeah, what is that? What are they?
So
yes.
Where does this like sensitivity to words and to labels? Because I mean, we Gen Xers, we grew up with teasing and sarcasm and throwing words at each other was how we coexisted. And so there's no problem there in my generation. But now people are like so sensitive to words. How do we work with that? How do we get through that? How does that make sense?
I think it depends on who you're talking to, because it's the people who have those and they don't like the word disability either. And I just did a podcast with somebody, Michael Hinkson, who is totally blind and a survivor of the World Trade Center fell. He was on the 78th floor in his office, but he had to walk down 1,400 steps with his guide dog. We're doing a podcast called Words Matter, and disability needs a new definition. Like and again, it's, I guess where the sensitivity comes in is not necessarily the words, but it's the mindset. So if somebody thinks, well, I have a disabled child, that's so negative. Like disabled, like you aren't able to do everything, 100% of everything. No, you're disabled in one area. You might have, like my granddaughter has cerebral palsy. She can't walk by herself, but she can laugh and throw balls and roll on the floor and have a blast and joke around with us all the time. So she's only, has a disability in that one area. So I do understand, I guess, the parents of these children specifically, they don't want their child to be labeled as a disabled person, just that some of the things they just don't do like you do. So they just don't, they're very sensitive about labeling, I think, their children. And they also want to make sure that people understand these are people too. They have feelings. They can do a lot of the things that maybe you don't think they can do, but they can. And maybe they're the visual adaptive needs that they have that we can see. If like Kalea doesn't look blind, like Kalea does not look, if you talk to her, she looks right at you and she laughs and she answers you back. She answers things that you don't even think she heard. It's like, we were just talking 50 minutes earlier, and all of a sudden she'll say 50 minutes later, oh yeah, and don't forget that. Like she'll, and we're going, whoa. I mean, her hearing is so good and so tuned into everything. So she's got so many beautiful gifts in other areas. So that's all. It's just being sensitive to not labeling the whole person as one thing.
Right. But, in a very short time, adaptive needs is going to take on the same kind of characteristics as special needs or then as disabled. And pretty soon people are going to want a word different than adaptive needs. And so it's that weird changing, that labeling that just kind of really confuses me there. So it's like we have to keep changing our language because those words that help describe what's happening with a person
exactly
become negative, even though this is what's happening with that person. And it's just all, and that's always been really confusing to me. And
I understand
now.
No, it's a good point, but I also I'm a girl, I'm a baby boomer. So when I was in that home with those two Down syndrome girls, they were called retarded. Mm-hmm. And how do you feel when I say that word to you? Retarded.
Well, I understand the difference. I have met some retarded people and they are retarded. And I have met some Down syndrome people and they are not retarded. It's a completely different kind of a situation.
Exactly.
So in a way, those labels help me understand how to interact and deal with that person. Whereas, they have adaptive needs. Well, then I'm not sure where to even start because I don't know necessarily where that problem is. And so, for me, again, Gen X is like, we're insensitive. We don't care. The labels don't matter to us. We were called so many things along the way that they became jokes to us. So we're not offended by the words. So that's just kind of where I go with that. And I've met some Down syndrome people. They're the happiest people on the planet.
Oh yeah. They love everybody.
They are amazing individuals. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a problem with that.
I love how you were saying it's part of it has to do with like a mind shift or the way you're thinking about the connotation or the word, right? A term that came across my desk recently was presumed competence. And that's something that a lot of people don't do with labels. They put a label on and they think they can't do something. But what we really want to do is take that label and then presume or assume that they can do it and do certain things instead. Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people step up to that when you presume it.
Yeah.
I can do that. Like, and they do they do it. I mean, I don't like where the people put restrictions on because, oh, well, you can't see, so you can't do this. Well, excuse me, Kalea can go tobogganing just as fast as anybody else and love it even more. Just because, so you're not going to let her go tobogganing because she can't see. You know what I mean? Like of course we have safety precautions in place.
Right,
I promise. But she loves going fast and she loves doing fun. She loves being twirled around and she likes that feeling that she gets when she is in that moment. Like I guess the motion is happening around her. So you never want to restrict people from what they can and cannot do. I totally agree with that.
Sounds like she might be a roller coaster junkie in disguise, right?
I wonder.
Actually want to go.
Yeah, and as long as we tell her what's going on, we always tell her, like, Kalea,
Right.
this is where we are. We're at the top of the hill. You're on your toboggan. And we all started when she was a baby and really slowly, of course. But now she knows where we are, and she goes, okay, I'm ready. And we let her go, and she's you should hear. And it's just, and she's never, it's always been great. And it's just the joy in her is just infectious. So
well, I
That's
completely
amazing.
understand that feeling because I've got to drive a couple of Ferraris on racetracks, and
ooh,
that is an amazing sensation, amazing feeling, the feeling of that moving fast and that. So I completely understand that, and everybody deserves a chance to
yes.
be able to live in that. However, whether it's tobogganing, whether it's driving, to be able to find those joys in life is incredible.
So true. 100%. Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit into your coaching when you work with families and things like that, right?
Yeah.
And part of your podcast is, living and loving each day. What's something that you talk to parents about or help parents kind of understand so they can live and love each day?
I think the most important thing that I've come across time and time again is that the parents, some of them feel guilt for some reason, even though there was nothing that they did, but they are living with that after the fact because their child now has issues that they're dealing with. And then also it's just, I think the biggest thing is just encouraging them to say, you are doing the best you can do. Your kids are amazing. Look how far they've come because of you. And also to stress the other side of that is to stress the self-care for them, because a lot of times I hear that especially the moms, but sometimes the dads too, they just kind of don't think about themselves first, and their thoughts are always on accommodating the child, where you really need to step back and just take a moment just to breathe and just to appreciate your own self and just to take that self-care, because that's when you're taking care of yourself, just like the mask in the airplane, right? Like you take care of yourself first, and then you can take care of everybody else around you. So that's just the biggest thing I feel like I have to keep repeating, to give them permission to say, you have every right to take a 20-minute break, or to go watch a movie, or to have a bubble bath. Like, why not? You can make somebody else in charge just for that short time, because you deserve that, because you deserve it. Like, you are enough. You are, spreading yourself maybe a little too thin, and you need to rejuvenate. You need to just have that self-love and self-care, because they're doing so much, and a lot of them are overwhelmed, and they don't see. Maybe it's that they're not seeing how much they've accomplished and how well their children are doing because of them.
Yeah, so that's very well said. So our oldest son is autistic.
No.
So back when he was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Yes. And now that's one of those labels that now is being removed, because it's like, oh, it's, but anyway, the guilt spectrum, and the shame. Right? And so, we were guilty. What did we do wrong? How? And we even went to like a class, like, my child is different, and sometimes it hurts. And to get really honest with yourself, it's like there is shame in that. I'm not ashamed of my son. I'm ashamed of our reaction, of how we handled it, and he still lives with us. And sometimes it's like, wow, did we make bad choices? Could we have helped him become more independent? What can we do now? And sometimes it's like, well, he doesn't necessarily want to do anything different now. So that there's also then the guilt of like, hey, did we not do enough, push enough? How could we have been different to give him a fuller life? But at the same time, he also seems to be content with where he's at. So, there's all of that you said. And still, even though he's in his 30s, there's still, again, there's guilt and there's shame and there's negative emotions that, again, we didn't do enough, or we could have done more, or what. And so, yeah, that he's alive, he's happy, he's healthy. We've done our job.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest point that you make. It's a really good point, is just that you honestly, when we have our kids and we love our kids, we do the very, very best that we know. And if we know here's something new, we'll try that, or we're always accommodating and being there for them. And the kids know that. They know that. And so it's just that we know we did our best, and that's what we can do, and especially when they're like, my oldest stepson is schizophrenic. And so he's an adult as well, and he can't work, or, but when I pick him up every week and we go to church and take him to do all his appointments, he's like, how you doing? Oh, I'm great. And he really is. He's got no worries. If there was an issue, he would say something, and we know he would do that. But we just are really well aware that where he is in his happy place. And what am I to judge if that's a good place or a bad place to be? And so we just know that he's doing good, and he's doing his best, and we know he's doing his best, and he knows we love him, and we're here for him anytime. And your kids, I'm sure your son knows that you're there for him. You're on his side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess one thing that just struck me was that, if we can come to basically peace with it ourselves, right? And we know that our children are the people we're caring for are kind of at peace with it. Then we have those outside nagging voices, right? How do we deal with the societal pressures or the societal questions, and even sometimes our own family questions, right? So, I mean, like when we were raising our son, my parents would even say, well, why aren't you making him do this? Or why isn't he doing that kind of thing, right? And just those extra outside pressures. What would you say to that? How would you help families handle that?
You say, I've researched this. I know what I'm doing, and I know it works for him. That's all. Like, I mean, so many things that we did as the tough parenting, and the parents for the baby boomers, especially, and even before that, and after the Gen X parents. I mean, you do so many things, like the helicopter parents, where they would give us all lectures on, don't be a helicopter parent, don't do this, don't do that. So those societal things are always there, right? But I think it's just reassuring, because it's education too, though. It's educating them, saying, listen, we know, because we know our son well, and we know if we say this one word, it might trigger him and it might make him sad. So we want to make sure that he doesn't get that message from us. Like, we're doing this because we know that he gets it, and he'll, like some kids the other day with my ADHD other grandson, it was like, he wasn't shoving the walk like I wanted him to. So I just said, okay, what kind of bubble tea do you want? And he just like perked up. He wants bubble tea, right? And I said, okay, you once you're done the snow, it wasn't a big piece either. Once you're done this, well, let's go get some bubble tea. Okay, so all of a sudden now he's like hyperactive into the shoveling, and he's jumping into the car before I even know it, right? It's just that we know what they need to hear to make them do what we need them to do, without blaming, shaming, or complaining, or showing any, really a negative reaction. Like, we're not going to yell at them saying, you need to listen to me and don't do that. And that does not work. We know that. And that with your child, because you've experienced that. So you just have to reassure them, say, hey, we know what works for him, but thank you for your care and consideration. Right?
Yeah. We always had to keep coming up with new ways, because whatever we did would only work for a short amount of time, and then we would have to adapt. And so it was a continual adaptation of how to motivate or get different things out of him, because it was like he was really intelligent. And
he is.
He still is.
We know. Yeah, for sure.
And so it's like, to get him to do stuff, but bribing him all of the time wasn't necessarily in the cards either.
But it works.
But it works.
Yeah. And as long as he's happy with the outcome and you're happy with the outcome, I don't see a problem there. Do you? I don't.
Well, just as long as they also have some kind of intrinsic motivation, right? If at all possible, right? Because we want people to be self-motivated if they can be. If we want them to be self-starters if they can be, right? So always bribing, every once in a while, no, let's see if you can motivate yourself. Yeah. But like Herb was saying, about every 2 weeks, we had to basically change up what we would call our discipline plan, back then. That was the big word, the discipline plan. But it basically is like his parameters. What could we get him to do or not do within those 2 weeks? And then he would figure a way around. Now, a few words about Vibrant Family Education.
How many entrepreneurs and business owners start out on this journey to make a better life for their family, only to find that it took so much more time and effort than they were expecting that they had even less time for their family? I know I did.
At Vibrant Family Education, we want to help you reach your family goals while you're still building towards your business goals. We do this by bringing you the third leg of the stool to keep your family upright, family education development.
By bringing your children's education home, you will be able to model your work ethic and family values as you overcome obstacles and challenges to build your business. Instead of learning facts to pass tests, your children can be watching and seeing the dedication it takes to build your business and the legacy you want to create for their future. They will be able to witness the struggles and joys, the wins and the losses, and learn from you how to persevere and grow in life.
Instead of waiting until you get successful to spend more time with your family, start with the end goal in mind and bring your family home. Instead of trying to repair your family after you reach success, let us help you start achieving your family goals from the outset. Learn to be successful with your family now, and no matter what happens in the future, they will be better prepared for life, especially after watching how you cared for and built not only a business, but a healthy, happy, and successful family.
We offer a wide range of educational services, including how to easily get started with homeschooling. Come visit us at vibrantfamilyeducation.com and let us show you how. And now back to our guest.
Oh, because he's smart, and that's what. And then you have to look at the positive side of that, saying if he didn't have that intelligence, he wouldn't have figured that out so quickly. Like he knows, and so that he's
Yeah. And so then with the school, that was quite the issue though, because they're like, oh, well, we just set up his reward plan or whatever at school. And about 2 weeks later, I'm like, we have to change it again. They're like, we just changed it. It's like, yeah, and it's not working anymore.
Yeah. And isn't it just those are like the children who are just have the higher IQ and they get bored really fast in school. The same kind of equation there. Like you have to do something to keep them engaged, and it's just because they're so smart and they're picking up on what you're laying down here so fast. You need to, and you've got to be on your toes. Right.
Yeah. Recently on our podcast, we had a father of a autistic son who was nonverbal, and in his 15, 16-year-old, when he became 15 or 16, they found the spelling thing where a spelling method
of communication.
And the kid is now intending to go to Harvard, and he's writing poetry, but he still is nonverbal. But he has to use his spelling board to be, and he can't type because his motor skills aren't there either.
Yeah.
So they're developing tools for him, and he is incredibly intelligent. And he used to act up in school because he was put in substandard classes where they weren't teaching him stuff. Exactly. And when they finally figured out the spelling thing, he was so far ahead of where they thought he was.
So exciting.
He was following his brother's school as well and learning more from his brother and what his brother was doing. Then so he would act up in school to get sent home because he was bored at school.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and you would be too. I mean, right? I have a quick story for you. When I was in my teaching my high school kids, I have my class. We had 2 classes, and I was in charge of the 8 kids on this side, and the nonverbal were on the other side. But we always did things together. And then this one boy, his name was Aaron, and it was the end of the school year, and cause I'm a singer as well, and I love singing anytime, anywhere. And I brought my karaoke machine to the school to do just sing along and to have a party. And it was really interesting because this one boy, I knew was nonverbal. I'd been there the whole year. He hadn't said anything, but really, a great kid. And, everyone got along nicely. But I picked up the mic and I started singing an Elvis song. Since my baby left, I found a new place to dwell. And all of a sudden, Aaron took the mic out of my hand. Da 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 Street Heartbreak Hotel. And he starts singing Heartbreak Hotel. And it was like, the whole audience and everybody was like dumbfounded.
Right.
But it was just that we hadn't found that, just like this boy, you just hadn't found the one thing. It was the music, and he knew the song. His dad had played Elvis all when he was little, and then every time he saw me, he went, Elvis, Elvis. Every time he saw
wanted to sing
me,
some more, right?
I think so. But
Yeah.
it was a miracle. It was like so amazing.
Yeah.
So it's all there. It's just that we have to encourage it to come out. But we have to, have the mystery of how do we do that, and being open to those things.
And that makes so much sense, because I'm actually tutoring with a child now, and it's the same kind of thing. He's not super verbal. I mean, he has words and he has phrases and things like that. But if he is so into tune to something, he is actually singing songs. And so what he's kind of thinking about based on the songs that he's singing. So when he's singing Old MacDonald's, he's thinking about all of the animals, right? And so we start talking about animals and things, because that's where his brain is kind of stuck on or working with right then, right? So once I figured that out, it was amazing how much progress, right? And then his mom tuned into it, and the progress that she's making with him. And she's currently homeschooling him, and she is making wonderful gains with him because of these things that she's been able to do and really tie into.
Yeah, she sent Kristina a series of text pictures. It was like, look what he's doing. And he wrote out the alphabet A to Z. I think he missed one letter.
Yeah.
And he had animals and stuff on it. And she goes, I don't, and he's just humming along. And Kristina sent her a video of this lady saying the alphabet sounds and bringing in the characters. And he did that all from memory. He did the alphabet, he did the animals, he drew the animals into the alphabet pictures. And it was like, and when she sent the video, the mom was like, this is amazing. And so
that connection that he was able to make because of the music, because of everything that he's been learning.
I think music is such a key to a lot of things. We could tie it, we could put it and match it, like have it as a modality and everything, just to see if some of the kids might, that might be a trigger for them to pick up on. And you never know, you just don't know. But isn't that interesting how powerful that is, that mode of music?
So I'm also the out of the box part of this podcast.
Okay.
And so I know a lot of
am I in trouble?
No, I work with energy healers and the woo world. And one energy healer that I worked with for a long time, when he was working with people, was like, okay, so what song are you thinking of right now? Or just think of a song. And they would just throw out a song, and he would go, oh, this lyric and how this relates to this. And would so there's a lot of times where when I'm working on myself, it's like, okay, I'll start singing songs in my head. It's like, okay, what's going on with this song? Where does that relate to in my life? And bring it back.
What message is it giving you?
What message is that random song that I can't get out of my head trying to tell me at this moment?
Our subconscious is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So working with kids and having them sing a song or work with a song, or what song do you want to hear, can also, like I said, help find out their mood, help figure out where they want to work, figure out maybe something that's going on or what's wrong.
And also not just in children. If I sing a lot in seniors' homes, so I go to seniors' homes, and especially during our summer Klondike Days, kind of a festival here in Edmonton. It's all the old "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" and "5'2" Eyes of Blue," all those older type tunes that I sang. And I remember so clearly, like walking in, and some of the homes, the people were they were dancing or active and getting their own coffees and stuff. But some, they were just sitting in a wheelchair, just kind of head hung over and not moving much. And or some even came in on stretchers. But I remember specifically one time singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" and taking my mic around to the people. And I would never, one thing I learned as a professional singer was you don't embarrass, especially women. Like the men don't mind it if you do that, because they joke around and they have fun with it. But women, you don't embarrass anybody. But I only did it to people who were kind of mouthing the words a little bit, and you could tell that they were kind of listening and they were into it. And so this one man, though, I put it right up to his mouth, and he just started singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" like it was he was singing in the Yankee Stadium. It was like amazing. And it just brings, that's that long-term memory store of that music. And they remember, and he might not be remembering who his daughter is that's coming to visit, but he remembers the songs and the music. So that's something else that we can tap into. That music is, I don't think it matters the age even, does it?
Yeah. And actually, that totally reminds me now about the importance of our nursery rhymes and the songs that we used to sing when we were little kids. And so many of those have been dropped off and forgotten, but they were there for a reason. That's how parents taught their kids how to rhyme, how to connect the dots, how to kind of tell stories through those nursery rhymes, through those songs and things like that. So it's important to play those sing-song games with your young ones. It's important to introduce them to the nursery rhymes, the tales, and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, so true. No, that's so true. Music is powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last thing here before we kind of wrap up. When you're talking about practical strategies for overcoming life challenges, you were talking a little bit about that. Do you have another one that you really like to talk with parents about? What is something else that they can do when things are just feeling overwhelming?
One of what just came to my mind is this kind of applies not just to my parents of adaptive needs children, but anyone who's kind of in a funk, like in feeling stuck or feeling not, like being grateful for everything is so important. And we do know that, like it's scientifically even, like waking up and saying the 3 things that you're grateful for and just having that, there's a 17-second rule where you just think about something for 17 seconds and it just perks you up because it's taking your mind off of the negative. But the one thing, and one of the things I teach is that I learned in another course that I was in, and it's called A Happy for No Reason. Marcy Shimoff, she was in The Secret. And so she has a course called Happy for No Reason. And it's about being happy from the inside out, regardless of the stuff going on outside of us. But the one big thing that made a big impact on me was the blame, shame, and complain game. And then all we did was for a week. She just said, okay, just for a week. Because a lot of times we blame somebody else for something that's happened, or we shame ourselves for something that we're really internally embarrassed about, but we shouldn't be, and also complaining, the stupid weather. It's like, well, that's going to do a lot of good because you have no power over the weather. So what she said was just go for a week and then do it alone with your family. And she said, like, get a big bowl on the counter. And every time somebody complains, shames themselves, if they do it outwardly though, or like I should have lost 10 pounds, not 5, like anything. And but saying that outside in your outside voice, you have to put a loonie, or in Canada where it's loonies here, but $1 in the bowl. And then it's amazing how you don't realize that you're saying these things until you do it. And then you put the money in. And by the end of the weekend, if you do it with your whole family, it's a cool game. And some people I know even do a whiteboard and they do their names with check marks. So they put a check mark every time. So you could do it that way too. But it's just interesting. It's just that self-awareness bit and that mindset where you don't realize how often you complain. Yeah. And when you're made aware of that, because I remember the first time I did it, I had $42 in my bowl. It's like, excuse me, but there were more people in the group that had more, and there was some people had less. But the best thing is that the next week when I did it, and I was really cognizant, I was really and if I was going to say something, I just would stop. I'd take a breath and just shut up, and I wouldn't say it. I might think to myself, but I wouldn't say it out loud. And then the next week I had $24 in there. Super cool. And then the third week I had you've got to be honest with yourself too, right? But then the third week it was just 2 or something, because I just slipped a couple times. But and now I really honestly, that's the thing I've held on to the most and kept it. And even if I'm complaining about anybody, I just really stop myself first, because is it going to make it better? Like, if it's going to make it better, well, yeah, you could state, okay, when you do that, this is how I feel, and I get upset or something. You can be realistic that way. But I mean, when you're blaming, shaming, complaining, it's nothing that by you doing that, it's not going to make it any better.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That reminds me of Dr. Robert Waldman and stomping the ants. And the ants stand for automatic negative thoughts.
Exactly.
And so whenever you have those automatic negative thoughts, one of his suggestions was to put a rubber band around your wrist and snap it, because your automatic negative thoughts are hurting you. And then if you would snap the rubber band, which gives you a little bit of pain, and it's like, okay, now you have a more and so you start stomping the ants. That didn't necessarily work for me very well.
So maybe the dollar thing would work better.
Right.
Maybe the money thing will work. Cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I did is I started putting things on an easy scale instead of a hard scale. So instead of complaining, it's like, oh, that's really hard. It's like, wow, that's really not easy. Because then it's like you're focusing on the ease of what you're doing instead of how hard it is. And so saying something is not easy is a lot different than saying, wow, that's really hard, which is a kind of so it kind of takes it into another realm. And that worked a lot better for me.
Good. And everyone, like, just like our kids, everyone's a little bit different, whatever that trigger is, and that helps you remember, that's what it is. And that's finding that, using our mind and being really conscious to find those little triggers and those little things that do work for you, and for our kids especially.
And we do have that Marcy Shimoff book, Happy for No Reason, as well.
Yeah.
So
I do that course. It's a great course. It's an 8-week course. And during COVID, I came into my office here, and I can't sell houses, and I can't sing. Couldn't do anything. And for me, that was actually I see it as a positive thing, and only that in my personal sense is that I had the time, I had this space and this calm. Like, what am I going to do with this time? And it was just, I was on the Year of Miracles anyway, and she'd said, okay, everybody, I'm doing this course. It's coming up. It's 8 weeks. And you can do it yourself, teach people. And I ended up doing it at the University of Alberta twice in their LF program. It's a Lifelong Learners Association for people 50 and up who, they just want to take courses. And it was really, really fun. And everyone I did it on Zoom, and I did 2 of those. And I did a few live after that too, as well. But it was just such a positive outcome. People are like, oh, like, we didn't think about that. Like, we didn't, but it's the biggest thing is finding peace from the inside out and loving yourself.
When you said A Year in Miracles, is that A Course in Miracles, where you actually do a different thing every day for a year?
No, that's A Course in Miracles, Marianne Williamson. No, I did not do that. It's called A Year of Miracles. It was Sue Mortar who does the energy stuff, and Sherry and Marcy Shimoff. And it was just every month we had a different, like, 1 month was financial, your relationships, self-love, like every month was a topic. And then they had speakers come on. And then just on the 3rd month, Marcy just said, hey, I'm going to do this Happy for No Reason course. And if you want to jump in, you can register here. And at first I thought, no, the word happy is a weird word for me. Like, what does that mean? Right. That's kind of like one of your words, like, it's, and that it seemed too frivolous actually to me at the time when she said it, the happy for no reason. Like, what is sticking your head in the sand, kind of an Osage thing? Like, what is that? Right. So I didn't understand it when I first heard, but then I started thinking about it, and I thought, I looked at the outline of the course. I thought, finding an inner sense of peace and well-being is her definition of being happy from the inside out. And I thought I like that inner sense of peace and calm, regardless.
Another interesting thing is I suffered a traumatic brain injuries, actually a series of traumatic brain injuries. And I damaged a lot of the portions of my brain that actually allow for happiness. So I very much lost touch with what that means, how that feels. And a lot of my positive emotions are actually gone, which is interesting because I smile a lot and I try and be very outwardly outgoing and positive, but it doesn't happen internally. This is a habit that I've built to seem this way, and it doesn't necessarily feel that way for me. So it's a really interesting that you said that, because I don't necessarily understand what happy is anymore either. So it's a really interesting that you brought that around. So
maybe we go look up that course and have you look at it and see if that helps you out.
Right.
But one of the things I love about everything we've just been talking about is the way that this can turn into role modeling for our children, right? So when we're doing these things, when we're talking about these things, making sure we're role modeling it for our children so that they can understand what is happy, how do you put things on a positive scale, how can you have that growth mindset, right? Because if they don't have those models, they're not going to necessarily get it by themselves. So
So
please
true.
listen to this part again and really think of something, find something that you can do with your children and have them get that positive
Yes.
role model on some of these
Yes.
things.
Oh, it's good advice. Great advice. Because there's always something. There's always
Yeah.
something we can be grateful for. And some
Absolutely.
people, I think they just don't see, they can't see it. It's hard for them to see it. You know, but it's, you got to look for it, and you have to really be like, I'm happy for the pen I just wrote with. I'm happy for just like finding the smallest little things, you know, that I'm happy for the people around me that I like to hang out with, like whatever it is, doesn't matter. But just that awareness is so important.
Yeah. So I would, so for me, that's more of a gratitude than a happy. So I do
Yes.
have gratitude, but
Yes.
that I guess there's a little shift in there between gratitude and happiness that I still need to
Yeah.
make somewhere in there. So again, gratitude practice is so very, very important.
Mm-hmm. And you're right about the happy word. I mean, like, that's like, we went back to the beginning here, like that word is just, maybe, people don't get it. And then, again, we're just explaining, we just have to, educate and say, this is what I mean by that. It's just feeling a sense of joy and fulfillment and gratitude all the time. And it's from the inside. It's not because of what you said to me or what you've given me or whatever somebody else did to me, or I just won $1 million. No, it's inside. Regardless of all the stuff that's going on the outside, I feel it inside. And it's a feeling, it's a really good feeling, whatever that word is that you want to label it as. Yeah.
Susan, this has been a wonderful discussion. We are so glad that you joined us today and helped us kind of move through these different layers and things like that. Would you make sure that you tell our audience how to get a hold of you? Because if something has struck your chord, please reach out to Susan and see if she can help you out a little bit more. So Susan, go ahead and share that information.
And again, thank you so much for having me on your Vibrant Family Education. I love what you guys do. It's great. I'm at www.suejansen.ca. It's a Canadian site. And I have courses there, and some happiness quiz is actually on there, and which is in the book too. You could find, where it is. It's the same one. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. And you can reach out, LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere that you see me. I'm pretty good at answering pretty quickly, and I'd love to hear any comments or suggestions or questions anytime. Thank you.
Sounds wonderful. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us and for being with us today. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you were kind of hoping to touch on today?
I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like we really did, and I'm really happy about, just I'm grateful for you guys. I'm grateful that you're here and sharing your expertise to everybody, and I'm just happy to be here today too. So thank you for that.
You're very, very welcome.
And thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your family. So some of the things that kind of were probably hurtful for you, and now you're sharing them and helping make the world a better place for that. So many times people who have children like this, they do feel shame and guilt, and they shut down and they don't share. And instead you took that and you're bringing it out to the world to help other people. And that is a beautiful thing. And that's the hero's journey. That's slaying the dragon and then coming back to tell the story. So thank you for being a hero today. Thank you for sharing your story. And it was just an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, audience, it is time to wrap up for today. But please remember that we are here to help you and your family become the best that it can be through education, through mindset, through growth. We want happy, healthy, and successful children all throughout our future. So please do your best to accept that challenge and move forward. Listen to the podcast, take the golden nuggets, take the tips and tricks, put them in your pocket, take them with you, and take them out and use them. Don't just put them on the shelf or put them in your pocket. Until next time, we will talk to you later. Bye for now.
Hello, and welcome to Bringing Education Home. I'm Herb.
And I'm Kristina. And together we bring you experts